Welcome to Built, Trusted, Chosen, the podcast for leaders and marketers in trades and construction, hosted by Wes Towers from Uplift 360.
Hello, Jay. It's fantastic to have you on the show today, Built, Trusted, Chosen. And we'll unpack exactly what you're up to these days, but just briefly, so the audience can know who you are, where you're from, what you're doing these days.
Absolutely. And first of all, I would acknowledge you, Wes, for what you're doing and how you're showing up for your tribe down under. My name is Jay Meacham, and I am the go-to business, life, and leadership coach here locally in Kansas City, Missouri, in the Midwest of the United States for the residential home construction industry and the skilled trades.
Yeah, brilliant. And I understand you're part of the association there. Was it the Home Builders Association?
Yeah, so I don't know if your listeners are familiar. In the United States, we have a National Association of Home Builders, an NAHB, which actually has brick and mortar space in Washington, D.C., inside the belt. And then they're outside of Washington, D.C., in various states and municipalities. There are local home builders associations. Here in Kansas City, it's the Greater Kansas City Home Builders Association, which I am a member of. Approximately 330 some businesses that are members, skilled trades, home builders, realtors, mortgage lenders, stagers, you name it, they're there.
Brilliant. And a big portion of the audience will be from the States as well. Being a global podcast, obviously a lot from Australia too, because that's where I am. But the most of the guests actually have not been from Australia so far. So
wow.
I'm keen to try and get some more Aussies on the show. But yeah, the lessons and principles that can be applied, all across the globe. And it's fantastic to have someone with you. You've got the three kind of core areas of coaching. So the business, the life, and the leadership how do they interact and play out together?
Yeah. So it all depends, for me, from a coach's perspective, it depends upon how the business owner shows up and what they are up against, where they're stuck or where they're trying to reach to. So there's intentionality set around when we first meet, finding out what's occurring for them and getting really accurate about how they're showing up as a leader, as a business owner, how they're showing up in their business. And oftentimes I will find, my experience is that the way someone is showing up at home bleeds over into the way they're showing up in their business and the way they're showing up as a leader. And so I refer to the frameworks that I use with my clients as, I'll call them soul line coaching frameworks versus goal line coaching frameworks. So goal line, all the very tactical, natural things and trappings that you would see in the day-to-day operations of a business, a marketing plan, clients, how they're selling their products, how they are nurturing leads and acquiring leads, all of that. Soul line is more of what's going on for them individually, interiorly.
Yeah, and I can understand that's a massive part of being a success in particularly the construction world, the trades world. It can be so demanding on people's time and energy and running a business. If people are running the business, founder-led businesses, it can be really challenging in the construction world. Lots of pressure, lots of time, lots of burnout. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of these stories yourself.
I have. I think of some of my clients and even others that aren't clients that are in the local industry, and I often hear them talk about a sense of being isolated, like they're on an island, that the weight of the world is on their shoulders to make this work. And it can be enormous pressure for folks and enormous burnout. And for some folks that, they may have been working on a trim carpentry crew. Was their first introduction into skilled trades and residential construction. It could be any one of them. They could have been working HVAC. They may have been a journeyman electrician, and they were really good at that and decided, I am so good at that, I think I'm going to hang out my own shingle, so to speak, and I'm going to start my own business. I'm going to start doing, leading my own business as a home builder, or I'm going to own my own trim carpentry, or I'm going to own my own electric company. And they quickly discover there's a distinction between the role and responsibility of being the person that's actually doing the work and the person that's leading the efforts of other folks and leading their business. And it turns out that there's a lot of pressure associated with that. Leading is not easy. And I get it. And so there's the rub for most folks. That, or maybe their business is growing and it's thriving and they've reached a certain kind of threshold where what they have been doing to get them where they're at presently is no longer working. And they feel like they're hitting a ceiling, they're banging their head on a ceiling. And so, and therein lies, okay, let's talk about and let's slow down your thinking around what has gotten you where you're at and where you're headed. And so that's another thing that's kind of ironic for folks. They find it disconcerting. I have to slow down. I'm used to hustling and going after this and that and the other thing. And it's like, no, don't slow down your hustle. Just take time out, get intentional about what it is you're going after and where you're at, and put together a plan. So,
yeah, 100%. I mean, sometimes there's that season of hustle that is fine for a time, but you can't live like that, at a high intensity your entire life. And if you do have a high intensity within your business, because sometimes you need to when you're launching, then eventually the other aspects of your life, your family life, etc., might suffer. And so getting these things in balance, and as you said, so that the leadership aspect, we sort of, for the most part, will start, and it was certainly my experience, you start with a skill set, working for other people, and you become great at that skill set. So eventually you start your own business, providing that to others. But there's just so many gaps and flaws in our understanding of what to do next. We don't know what we don't know. What do you think are some of those key things that people need to learn stepping out for the first time into a business?
Yeah.
And what are those things?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. And first, a funny little phrase. Business is fun until people get involved. So I think there are three key things for business owners, particularly when they're starting out and they're scaling. And it's, you need to get a really good, accurate sense of what you're offering in terms of products to your clients or services. Very clear and very accurate about what it is you're putting out there in the marketplace. And finding out from your current clients, how does that stack up in their mind, particularly for the ones that come back to you or really like you? What is it about your product or service that satisfies them and makes them come back or return or refer you, and that they'll do it time and time again? So getting really clear and accurate about your product and service offerings. The second one is systemization. And this can be technology. Oftentimes people think when I say systemization, oh, I don't have all the whiz bang latest AI and telemarketing things where I can turn the lights out and I have an answering service and we respond automatically. It's not so much that. It can be that, and it's more than that. It's simple things like what's trapped inside your head that only you know and nobody else knows. And if you're going to scale your business and grow your business, that stuff has got to come outside of your head. So reducing things to operating procedures or documented processes, or having consistent, sustainable, repeatable business processes in place and having them documented at a certain level so that you kind of have a go-to manual that anyone can go to. If they're new to your organization or they're switching roles, it's there. So systemization in that sense, and it can be technology. You can have a technology play there. The other thing I would say is, what is there about your product or service that is truly unique, that's unique to your business and what you're putting out there? And how is it distinctly different than what others are doing? And it may not be, I know in the skilled trades and in home construction, you're building homes, or you're pulling wire, or you're putting pieces of wood together. That sounds like it's pretty cookie cutter. The distinction might be in the way you do it up front. How do you make that unique to that particular customer's home or their construction site? What is it you're doing to provide unique products and services to them and the industry that you're working in? So those three things, getting really accurate around those three areas of your business, are absolutely critical.
Yeah, 100% agree. And all of these things, in my world, they lend themselves to marketing. When people really understand clearly who they are, who they serve, their ideal client, which speaks to your first point, but also that uniqueness. That's the marketing aspects that we need to share, because I mean, in general terms, people will know what the industry is that you're working in to a degree. They'll know the general concepts, but the pieces of the puzzle that only you provide, they're the things that need to be shared and communicated. And sometimes we just don't know those unique aspects of what we do until someone helps us, draws it out of us. I suppose that's the role of a coach or a mentor, someone who you can speak to, and they can help you see what you can't see. Is that a big part of what you're up to?
It is. So that's a whole part. I talk about getting accurate. Where are you at today? And to your point, and understanding your why you're doing what you're doing from a marketing perspective and how it's unique and different from others that are out there. Oftentimes, I'm going to go back to, I started out as a trim carpenter, and now I own my own trim carpentry business. Oftentimes, business owners, when they start that path to owning their own business, they don't think about why. Why is it you're wanting to do this? What's your driving force behind you owning your own business? And it's okay if they don't know that. And I so want your listeners to hear this. The struggles that they're encountering in their businesses, no matter what they are not unique to them. It happens in all small businesses and big businesses too.
Yeah,
it happens to
100%.
it happens to business owners. So I interact with a lot of folks that feel isolated. I mentioned that before. They don't have someone they can go to talk about what's going on in their business. They're afraid. Oh, I should know this. I started this business. I own it. I'm the leader. No, it's okay. It really is. It really is okay not to know everything. It just is. And so what I do, first of all, is get accurate with them, find out what they do know and what they don't know and what they need to know. And that goes through a series of conversations of lots of very few questions on my part, and listening to whatever they have to say. And then we co-create an agreement around what they want to do and what they want to create with their business. What's next for them? And it becomes very much about them and about their business. I can tell you this, Wes, every one of my clients and their journeys and the way I have approached them with coaching is completely unique to them. It's custom curated to them and what's going on with them in their business.
Yeah. So whilst the challenges are common for all, but they manifest themselves slightly differently for all of us, and they need unique solutions to those challenges. It feels like, to me, we often know where we are right now, the A, B, C, and we know the X, Y, Z, or Z, you might say. We know the start and the finish, but the middle part, we just don't know. But if we've got a clear understanding of what that end goal is, what we're working towards, then we can make decisions on the fly because we know if it's moving us towards where we want to be or moving us away from, then the decision-making process becomes a whole lot easier. I suppose the decision-making processes and leadership, sometimes there's lots of ideas around us. How do you go about tackling when we're learning in our leadership, and we're all evolving and growing in leadership? How do we balance the listening to lots of perspectives and then the decision making of, I'm the leader, I have to make the decision?
Yeah. So oftentimes it really revolves around understanding the purpose of your business and the purpose of your life. I mean, those two things are interrelated. And yes, we're very clear about where we're at in point A and where we want to head to. The in between A and Z sometimes can be kind of murky for folks. And so there's different ways to bring clarity to that. I oftentimes will have folks do some visualization exercises and have them visually describe and or draw what it is they're wanting to do. Because they may not have the words to use to describe it, but they can picture it. And so I'll have them tell me, what does this look like? And then we can drill down into, okay, you have this particular thing that you're wanting to create. Here's some types of metrics, if you will, or tools that you can use to implement that particular vision and measure it and monitor it on an ongoing basis. So it starts with having a real clear understanding of purpose.
Brilliant. And I suppose when you're supporting people through this process of understanding, getting clarity around these things, it's helpful that you've got experience in the field, firstly, because you sort of understand to a degree the niche and the industry. You were in the construction field a little bit historically as well. You had a career.
Yeah, I've worked in accounting and IT spaces in the residential construction space. It's all about cash flow in a small business. It really is, particularly when you're starting and you're scaling, and cash is king. And so from my experience in working in accounting and understanding accounting processes and accounting systems, I've helped small business. They can't figure out why they're not growing. Why can I not? Why do I struggle to meet my payroll? That's a classic thing. Oh my gosh, payroll is this Friday. How am I going to meet my payroll? What's going on? So, a nice look at cash flow, looking at your expenses and your income. Oftentimes with small businesses, cash flow issues revolve around, they've got receivables out there that they haven't billed a client for something, or they've sent them an invoice and automatically they think that they're going to put that money in their bank account and it's going to be there. And it's never touched. It's never thought of. I've sent the invoice to them. It'll magically appear in my account for my business. That's not the way it happens in real life. And so there are then steps that you have to take to kind of, okay, what's the systemization? What's the standard repeatable process I have around my cash flow and the different elements of my cash flow? So yes, from a construction trades industry, that oftentimes is a big thing. The other is finding talent. I hear cash flow and talent. There is a skilled trade shortage in the United States. It's no secret. And I have helped business owners in the skilled trades come up with unique ways to find talent. And one of them is pick your A player that you've got in your business right now. You may think it's you. And if you think it's you, then you better think again. But you want to look for your A players that are getting it done day out in the trenches. They're the ones doing the work. Find that person, sit down with them and ask them, why did you come to work for us? What motivates you? how do you approach your work? Where do you hang out when you're not at work? Because where they hang out, odds are you're going to find more of those A players where they're hanging out when they're not at work. And when I say hanging out, that can be physically in some space. It could be people that they know from college. It could be people from their friends in high school. It could be people in any social group where they hang out. It's a little different approach than typically, putting something on Indeed and hoping for the best and basically selecting from whoever applies. I jokingly say that has a pulse and can breathe. There's more to it than that. And oftentimes, that process is based on looking at their skills and their experience. And don't get me wrong, those are important. I really work with the leaders that are struggling finding talent to look at the abilities. What are the abilities required for a particular position that you're wanting to fill? And search for folks with those abilities. So find out more about the abilities of your A players and replicate them. Go find those people. Ask them, where can I find somebody like you?
Yeah.
Another thing I've done, and wasn't my idea, it was one of my clients' ideas, around finding seasonal help. They came up with these yard signs. They look kind of like the size of real estate signs, but they put them in the front lawn. They got permission first, I should say that, from local high schools. And they put them in the front lawns of local high schools where they were looking for seasonal help. And they had some really cheeky lines and ways to attract their attention. It was on social media. They could interact with this business via, Instagram or wherever. And they found folks gravitated to those. And it was interesting. It wasn't just the high school kids. It was adults too. They'd drive by and see these really, curious, funny signs and find out, oh, wow, this is really real. So they got really curious and they were unique in the way they were trying to find talent. Another thing that's one of my clients has done locally is they have tapped into, and this is really within the Kansas City Home Builders Association, they have tapped into the local vocational instruction, like shop classes, skilled trade classes that kids can take while they're still in high school. And they have partnered up with the shop teachers, the instructions for these high school students that are in these classes, to offer them an internship, a journeyman experience, if you will, while they're still in high school. And one of the benefits they offer to them is if you come to work for us full time after you get out of high school and you've gotten whatever certifications you need, we will pay for your ongoing training in a junior college or a more full bore on trade school. So that's another unique thing. I know it happens in other areas of the United States, but it's fairly new here. And I offer that up too as a way to be unique and find top talent.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And what I find really interesting about you, Jay, is there seems to be a really great balance of the pragmatic and the technical, having the accounting background. So that's the numbers and the cold hard facts, that we need to understand as businesses, and particularly in the trades construction industry, things can go horribly wrong if you don't know your numbers. So you've got all that technical aspect and the people management, but the soul-led focus as well. There seems to be a real balance. What do you think created that balance in you? Did it just come from years of experience, or how did that come about for you?
So, well, I grew up on a farm in central Iowa, and it is a unique small business in and of itself. And you live, from the ground, whatever you produce are from the ground. And so you become very practical. I had to put myself through college because there was not the income to support a college education for me. So I learned early on the value of hard work. And it's kind of like when you go through that process, if you're really self-aware of yourself, I'm a consummate learner, Wes. And so having that well-developed, round, round out kind of approach to things, it wasn't always there. I had to go out and acquire it, and intentionally build it. Honestly, when you want to talk about something unique and a unique offering in a business, I'm pretty unique in the respects of, to your point, having those hard skills in accounting and operations and people management. There's also the human side of business that often is underappreciated, ignored. And so that's the part that I bring. I've got the whole thing. And that allows me to do what I said earlier, the kind of the custom curated coaching for folks.
Yeah, well, it's so important, particularly now. But when you're seeing a shortage of potential workers for a company, you really need to focus on being a trusted place, so you're chosen to work for, because the power is in their hands. If they've got options for where they potentially would work, you need to build a company and a culture where people want to be, and also to attract them in the first place, but to keep them, because it's far easier to keep someone than to have someone come in and train them all over again, and all that time investment. It's a costly experience. So if we look after our people well, I think the human element is really important.
Yeah, and you hit at something there, Wes, about the cost of finding someone and retaining them. And oftentimes, and I get it, we as business owners, we just want to have somebody in a position or in a role. We've got to get something done. We need to put somebody in that spot. I don't care what their abilities are or skills or talents. I'm going to put them in that space. Or we may shuffle the deck and rearrange folks. And oftentimes that has some hidden consequences, if you will. There's a unique blend between the culture of your business, the dynamic, the vibe of your business, and the performance of your business. And sometimes when you look at the individual level of people on your team, and if those two things are out of alignment for them and in your business only operates to the lowest level of performance and culture fit for an individual in your business. And that's eye-opening for small business owners that are like, really? One person can bring me down that far? Yes, absolutely they can. And so that's eye-opening for leaders, particularly that, like I said before, and you've said, they don't have the business background, and it's okay that they don't. Yes, that kind of dynamic can really shoot you in the foot. And so there's a whole nother exercise and things that you have to do in order to kind of fix that, clean it up, so that all your people are firing on all four cylinders in terms of their fit in the culture or vibe of your company, and their performance is also off the Richter scale. Yeah,
100%. And so the challenges, there's always challenges in businesses. And so the company with, say, 12 people, as opposed to the company with 500 people or whatever it is, just different people challenges, I think, because you've got different departments and not necessarily people talking to amongst each other. How would you tackle that transition time where you're going from a small company where everyone's tight knit and close and everyone knows everybody, and hopefully it's a good culture? How do you support the growth and the scaling of that, so you don't lose some of those key elements that got you there in the first place?
Yeah, it all starts with intentionality as the leader or owner of the business. And if that's where you're headed, the work to enable that, to realize that, starts well in advance of actually pulling the trigger on it. So you have to think about, I want to scale my business to 10x. Okay, great. What types of systems do you have in place that you can scale to get to 10x? What type of people and abilities do you have in your business that can support a 10x? Oftentimes, cross-training is something that comes up as an enabler to a certain extent for scaling. meaning that you don't have someone so unique in what they do and that they're the only person that can do it. You have a team of people that may be able to do a series of tasks or skills. They have the abilities to do multiple things in your business. And so you can flex when it comes time to scale. You can flex by moving those people around in different roles and responsibilities. But it all starts with intentionality, Wes, and knowing this is what I want to do. Okay, what are the things that need to be in place to enable that or make that successful? And it really revolves around systems and people.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. The intention is kind of like the foundation. If you're thinking at it from a building perspective, I mean, if you've got the intention to build a massive company, you need foundations in place that are going to support that. You know, if you were to build a single story home, the foundations need to be at a certain level. But if you're building a multi-story building, the foundations need to be at a whole new level. So having that intentionality to forward project what you might need and build those systems that can support where you're going, that's the fun part. And as you said, it takes time. You've got to set these things up, set them up in motion before you need them to a degree.
One of the things that needs to be in that foundation also is the owner, the original owner, leader of the business. If they're wanting to scale it, they're going to have some people in place right below them they can trust, because they aren't going to be able to do everything that they used to do when they scale. They just can't. It's not sustainable for them to do. And so there's this whole thing around trust. And the original owner or business person has to really set the intention around letting go of some of what they used to do.
Yeah.
They have to be committed to that. And
committed to people need. Yeah. It's Jesus had his 12 disciples that are closest to him to build what he was building. I think it's just the way anything that's successful starts with a core group of people who are passionate about the thing and understand the direction of where it's all going. This has been an awesome conversation. I've loved it so much. We could take it so many further angles and so on. But what's the one question that I should have asked that I haven't?
I don't know that it's so much of a question. It is a thought-provoking statement for folks, and particularly leaders and business owners. And it's this: how you do anything in your business or in your life as a leader, in your family, how you do anything is how you do everything. So the question that you could pull out of that, Wes, and for your listeners is, how am I showing up? Who am I being in my business? Because how you do anything as a business owner and leader is how you do everything.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
That's so good, Jay. How can people connect with you, or what are the next steps to find out more about what you're up to?
Yeah, so I would point people towards my website, coachjaymeacham.com. It's all together, COHJAYMEACHAM.com. And they can find out more about what I do and the products and services I offer. There's a link to I'll call it a guide, a workbook, middle of the page, right below or above my testimonials on my homepage. They can click on that, download a PDF. It's a series of questions and prompts that you can ask yourself and kind of give yourself a thumbs up. Yeah, I'm doing this, or a thumbs down, or and it's all about how can you, as the business owner and leader of your business, how can you lead a financially free, time-rich life? So a series of questions there.
Yeah, brilliant tool, and from my understanding, it's tailored around for builders as well.
It is.
Yeah, brilliant. So if any builders are out there, I encourage you to download that, and it's probably if you're somewhat a little bit outside the building sphere, the questions are probably still relevant for you. Sounds like a tool you could use recurring as well. If it's almost a self-assessment, maybe it's a tool you add to your suite of tools that you do from time to time, maybe as a team, to reassess where you're headed and so on. Would that be fair to say?
Absolutely. You're spot on, Wes.
Awesome. Thanks, Jay. This has been a fantastic conversation. I'll put those links to those resources in the show notes as well, so people can find that easy. Thanks so much, Jay, and we'll stay connected.
Yeah, thank you, Wes, and thank you to your leaders.
Thanks for listening to Built, Trusted, Chosen. Brought to you by Uplift 360. Visit uplift360.com.au.